Hello, welcome back to the Battery Podcast. I am Aidan, and that is my co-host Jack. We have a very special episode for you all today. We were lucky enough to sit down and talk to Dan Arestia, who I'm sure all of you know if you follow lacrosse in any way. Dan, of course, one of the biggest voices, not working for the PLL, in primarily on Twitter, Lacrosse Network, not Lacrosse Network, Inside Lacrosse. There we go. Um, Watches more lacrosse than I think anyone I've ever met. Knows so much about the sport. We're so lucky to have the opportunity to sit down and talk to him. All right, and welcome to the Battery Podcast, Dan Arestia. Dan, thank you so much for talking to us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me on, guys. Happy to be here.
Yeah, great. So lucky we got the lacrosse data Twitter to come talk about the Cannons, talk about the PLL, and I'm sure we'll get some college in there too.
Yeah, man, whatever you guys want to do. I'm pumped. I'm excited. I think it's really cool time that we have these supporter groups kind of brewing in the PLL attached to the home markets. It's an exciting time for lacrosse. So pumped to be here.
Yeah, great. All right. So let's maybe just get into it with like the news that I think dropped today with, or no, it was yesterday with Earhart announcing his retirement. Um, so Pacino's going to the Whip Snakes, right?
It's what everybody's immediately going to think is, all right, well, Earhart retires, so obviously, the game loses a Titan. In my mind, he's the best LSM to ever lace him up. Um, but everybody's immediately going to be like, oh, well, they have to draft somebody now, and do they? I don't know. Do they have to necessarily take somebody right at three to replace Earhart? Probably
Mm.
not. Can they wait? You'll see what you get later. The tricky thing about it is that the Whips don't own their second round pick this year. As part of the Jackson Morrill deal, that pick belongs to the Outlaws. So the Whips will pick at three, and then they won't pick again for a little while.
Mm.
So it'll be kind of a who's there for you. Will a Jake Pacino be there the next time they pick? It's starting to look like probably not.
Nah.
So you'd have to either reach for him at three or wait and take somebody later. But look, they drafted Elijah Gash a year ago. I have been vocally supportive of Elijah as a player, as a talent and everything. He is going to be one of the more raw polls in the PLL in terms of you know outright skill and all that, because he's, I mean, frankly, still pretty new to the game of lacrosse. But in terms of measurables and athletics and just physical gifts, there are too many other people like him on a lacrosse field. It's kind of like those, if you want to look at basketball, it's those early days of Giannis, where
Mm.
Giannis was this unparalleled athlete with these physical tools that just nobody had, but he just had to learn a lot about playing NBA basketball. And then when he did that, we have Giannis like we have now.
Yeah.
So it's harder to kind of do it in the PLL because it's not like these guys get together as a team and practice every day the way other Big Four sports do. They get together the day before the game, they run their game plan, they practice a little bit, and then they play, and then they're, back home or whatever for another week. So it's harder to kind of get the time that can bring some of that development at a quicker rate. But Elijah's been playing indoors. He plays for Panther City. So he's gotten some experience there, and that's, I'm sure, going to help his outdoor game. But he is a guy I would watch to see who, as somebody who could step into an Earhart role. At the end of last season, kind of after the Whips last game, in post game media, Coach Stagnetta said, "Look, there are young guys on this team who we're excited about, who they really like." But because of the players that are in front of them, they haven't gotten opportunities. Who really didn't get a ton of opportunities last year. I think Elijah Gash could be one of those guys. I think he's a guy I would look to see, can he step up and play PLL lacrosse for them this year.
Yeah. I guess we'll find out come what, June 1st or 2nd. Um, well, I suppose we'll find out May 7th whether or not because Pisano's certainly going somewhere, whether it's to the Whip Snakes or not. But yeah,
Yeah.
I can't see him fall into the third round. He has just been so fun to watch.
Yeah, his
Yeah.
star has kind of been on the rise really since the summer. I think at World Championships, everybody, people knew at Albany prior to Worlds that it was like, this kid's pretty good, and then at Worlds it was like, okay, he's doing things that are moving the needle and are special. And then, he's playing more box and he's adding that to his background. And you see him at Albany this year. And I swear, like I've joked about it. Like, I don't know if Jake knows that he's allowed to come out of lacrosse games. Like, it's okay. You can sub out for a little while. Because he plays like he doesn't think it's allowed. And Coach Marr uses him like he doesn't think it's allowed. He's
Yeah.
out there for everything. So he's special.
Yeah. Well,
For
it'll be fun
sure.
to see him wherever he goes.
Yeah.
Um,
I wanted to ask you, obviously that we are Cannons fans. That is our number one team. So definitely huge news with Earhart, but our main focus is Boston. So staying on that draft topic, what do you think the Cannons are going to wind up doing at 6?
So, when you look at kind of the Cannons, and I think you kind of have to think about their offseason approach and really their approach since Coach Holman has gotten there, in terms of the kind of person that they want to have in the locker room and everything. I think that's more important to them than necessarily a positional need. I think, look, last year they were a magical team. The Cannons, just caught this lightning in a bottle, and everything fit. The pieces all fit. The chemistry was right. The coaching was right. Everything there, from not even just Coach Holman, but Mikey Thompson, Jim Mitchell, the scheme and the players, everything just fit perfectly, and everybody was totally bought in, and you could just tell week to week that all those guys were just 100% committed to this idea of building this team up from where it was. So this offseason, if it's me, if I'm the GM, my mission is, okay, how do I not screw that up? How do I make sure I don't bring somebody in here who will disrupt that, who there's something about them where they might not be totally bought in, or the role that they play might not be right for them, and or whatever it may be. So you want to make sure that the guy you take is a guy who's going to be um, somebody you've gotten a chance probably to interview pretty well and gotten to know the coaching staff that has him now in college, so that you can get kind of this guy's going to fit, right? Like, this guy's going to be a good locker room guy, right?
Mhm.
Everybody that the Cannons are going to, if you get drafted in the PLL draft, you're good enough to be there. In this draft in particular, look, the league and everybody, I do it too. We all say it every year. Oh, this draft is loaded. It's stacked. It's awesome. Ugh. It's the greatest draft ever. A lot of years it's hyperbole. This year there are 19-man roster players that will go in the 4th round. That, like, it's really that good. So you don't have to worry about, are we going to get somebody who can help us on the field? You're gonna. It would be really hard to draft somebody who doesn't end up on your game day roster this year. So the primary concern is, sure, position of need, maybe a little bit, but really, is this a guy that we like for our locker room, for our culture, that are going to mesh with our players at his position, with our leadership, with our coaches, and our style of play?
Yeah. Well, what do you think is one of those positions of need? They went out and signed Apple. They had the new face-off rules, and then went and signed Tucci. So at least from my perspective, I don't feel like there's a glaring hole on the team. So if you had to say, what do you think is somewhere that they are lacking, maybe?
I don't know if it's right to say that they're lacking, but there's certainly places you can always kind of make your strength stronger.
Mhm.
I think the face-off move is one that they made sure, because Raw can't face off anymore, so they need somebody there. I would expect them to draft another player at the face-off spot. I think that's another place where it's going to make sense, and they won't probably have to use an early round pick, but you could come away with a Jake Naso, with a Luke Weirman, depending on how the rules go. I've been high on Stathakis out of Denver. I liked
Mhm.
him a lot more before the rules changed, and you needed somebody who was going to be able to just be physical and eat punishment. But now that you don't have quite as much of that allowed anymore,
Mhm.
I think Tommy Burke could be a really good face-off guy in the PLL. So there's certainly some options there. I think Naso, to me, is like the kind of the clear guy I would kind of start with. Um, and then, like I said, strength stronger, maybe a little more midfield depth, or you try and add some attack depth. If you really want to get nuts, you can maybe grab a goalie late because you think Gettleman might not be around for a whole lot longer, that kind of thing. You want to try and get your attack built if you want a little bit, like, starting to think of guys who can help you down the road as Marcus and Matt get up in years, and all that. And it kind of becomes more Asher's, offense to run. But I really think face-off is a spot where there's a clear and obvious, like there's one on the roster, and with the rules now, it probably wouldn't kill you to have two, and to think about at least for camp when you can have 30 guys. Bring two, even three face-off guys to camp and get that kind of sorted. And then it's about depth. It's really going to be about depth. Do you want to add another short stick defensive midfielder? It might not be a great draft for that kind of thing. I don't know. Outside, Bo Peterson's a great player, but to me, there isn't somebody who's like, all right, here's your Danny Logan, here's your Peyton Ruzanka, here's your, you're that caliber player. You have Goodrich and Fairman, so you don't need necessarily a guy who can be a number one at the spot. But if you want to add some depth behind those two and more of a pure defensive player, never a bad idea to do that. And they signed all the polls. You might want to get a poll who's more of a pure LSM. Epple is going to play down low. He's not going to be on the wings for you. Bryce Young is a guy who's going to be down low. So if you wanted to try and do a little bit of LSM depth there, you could probably do that too.
Mm. Now, which of those face-up guys that you mentioned do you think is the most likely to take out Zach Currier's kneecaps? Because I think that is the most important factor to the Cannons' success.
If you want somebody who's going to be chopping people down, there's not really a guy you can think of where it's like, he's gonna be able to disrupt Zach a lot. But I think kind of what I like about Naso is if you go watch a bunch of Naso's games this year, you will see teams using their face-off guy to throw the kitchen sink at him, and he has to be ready to counter. He's got to be ready with different moves, with different techniques. He's got to exit differently. It's like he has to do everything every week to try and keep his numbers up, and he does. So his ability to adjust, I think, is what makes him, to me, kind of a number one kind of guy. And he has the skills and everything to be dangerous with the ball in the offensive end. The way that teams kind of liked Joe Nardella for that kind of thing. Jake is a skilled enough offensive player that if you're running a break and if he's running a break and exits forward and you don't slide to him, he'll score. If you do slide to him, he'll make the right decision, and he will also just maybe throw a box fake at a sliding defenseman and run by him and score. So he's a very, very good offensive player. I think, again, if you kind of want somebody who can tangle with Zach Currier, I mentioned Naso because Currier isn't always going to win those clamps, but he's going to be all over you everywhere else trying to win that ground ball. He's going to mix it up. And because Naso can do so many different things to counter and can kind of is built to, exit where he wants to exit and can counter what you're doing very, very well. He's built to kind of get away from what he knows Zach wants to do. He can kind of pivot away from that kind of thing. So I think he would be my target.
Cool. And hopefully hold up long enough for Ethan Rawl to get there on the wing and then chop his arms off then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ethan Rawl and the draft, Rawl came out of nowhere last year, undrafted. Do you have any predictions on guys that might go undrafted and then come on to the scene this year like Rawl did last year?
We kind of talked about the idea of this draft being as deep as it is. I do believe there are 19-man roster guys, like I said, who will be picked in the 4th round. And when your draft is that deep, there will assuredly be guys who don't get drafted, who then get like a camp invite and and look special because the draft is that deep. And we'll all get the how did we miss these guys, kind of routine. They're a guy I kind of love who I think he'll probably be drafted. So I don't know if I'll be able to lay on like he'll be an undrafted guy, but Mike Robinson out of Delaware is not necessarily getting a ton of pub. Again, Delaware is kind of in and out of the top 20. He's to me one of the best lefty shooters in the college game, period. He's one of those just classic Peterborough, like the stick will never leave his left hand, but he can run by people. He can feed. His finishing ability, though, is spectacular. He really performed well at the Fall Classic for Team Canada. He's been a Team Canada guy. And I think, teams will, as you draft attackmen and you draft offensive players, often the guys at the top of the list will be the quarterback types. obviously the Schellenbergers, the Kavanaughs, the O'Neills, the guys who you know are going to run the offense, or things are going to go through them. And then the guys who will be thought of as maybe complementary type players tend to just go a little bit later. So that's one of those things where Mike is not going to be a guy who gets drafted because you're going to run your offense through him. But you can't only have quarterbacks. You can't have six guys who need to have the ball all the time on the field at once. You need to have pieces who can play well off of others, who don't need the ball to be successful. And any team that needs a lefty, needs a scorer, Robinson can be that guy without saying, I need the ball to do it. He can play off of everybody else. So he's a guy who might go a little bit later because he's not the QB type. He's at Delaware, not getting a ton of pub, even though he's as he's been an All-American, I think. He's, again, Team Canada guy. But with the draft this stacked with those first three, and then you got Brandow, you got Ross Scott, you got, the midfield is great with Knobloch and Dobson and Graham Bundy. And, you start going through just the guys, and all of a sudden you're in the third or fourth round and you're just like, I can't believe I haven't named this guy yet. So he's one of those guys who I think could be later because of all the other, mega stars kind of in the draft ahead of him. But he's a really, really good player who somebody will be happy they took.
All right. Well, I'll keep my eye on him as we're at the draft party on the 7th, and perhaps into camp. Would love to see that tweet of you proven right. We'll be sure to save this clip if that happens.
Bookmark it.
Talking about everyone having their role in the offense, and off-ball guys and everyone knowing their role. That was part of what made the Cannons so magical last year, is just the way the ball moved around on offense. And it was said on the broadcast a couple times, maybe the addition by subtraction of Lyle Thompson last year was a factor in that. I was wondering if you had heard anything about Lyle, if you knew anything about what his future with the Cannons or with the PLL or field lacrosse might be, because obviously he's one of the best players the sport has ever seen, and would be a tragedy if he never came back outside. But I can't say that the Cannons missed him too terribly last season.
Yeah, it was kind of, it was like I don't know if it was a meme or if it was like a sincere debate, but it was like, did Lyle Thompson make the Cannons worse? I'm of the opinion that Lyle Thompson is one of, if not the best lacrosse players walking earth. And if you have the chance to put him on your team, you should do it. Because he's Lyle Thompson. He creates goals out of nothingness. He's just a remarkable player. I also know that Lyle tends to not necessarily share that kind of info with everybody. He's, if Lyle is going to come back, we'll find out about it when Lyle wants us to. It's not going to be the kind of thing where anything leaks to, to the media or whatever, unless Lyle makes sure it gets there. And obviously that's I think what athletes would probably aspire to in most sports, is that he gets to completely kind of control his own narrative. I know last summer was great for him. Six Nations won a Mann Cup. He had a great summer. He got to spend a ton of time, around his home with his family, all that kind of stuff. And that's all obviously super important to him. His community is very important to him. So I think, I feel bad trying to speculate, and I don't want to, but just to answer your question, I think it would be hard to convince somebody to give up that kind of summer that he had and return to the field game, to the travel and the demands of the PLL. But if anyone, again, if he's up for it, then obviously everybody would be happy to see him do it. But I don't think anybody would ever fault him for wanting to stay, again, like close to his community, close to home, and compete for Mann Cups all summer.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about not just the amount of lacrosse games you play when you do NLL, PLL, and then MSL as well, and you like multiple games in a week, and so much travel. And yeah, it's been the way, especially the PLL does it, where you're like flying from your home all across the country, a different place every year. It's got to be, I mean, even for the guys who only do the PLL, it's got to be exhausting, and especially.
Yeah, I mean, playing MSL or playing WLA, if you're playing summer box, for a lot of those guys, it's the opportunity to play and go home to your own bed after games. Guys like Lyle, or even guys like Jake Withers is playing his summer games there for Peterborough. He's got an easy ride to and from the barn to play his games. he's a guy who just started work in that community. He's got, still a very young child. So, it's all those things adding up together, outweighing that with, I have to fly to Boston, to Philly, to Dallas, to Fairfield, to wherever the PLL is this weekend, and home again every weekend. Um, it can be tough, in particular for guys with kids, with wives, where you got to go to your family and say, by the way, every weekend, all summer,
Mhm.
I'm traveling or I'm working. It's hard. It's hard. So, you hope the hope has always been that we get to a place where these players are compensated well enough that they can live in the market where they are playing. So that if you're a member of the Cannons, they are paying you well enough that you can live in Boston or in, the Massachusetts area, and you don't have to have the same kind of travel demands. And progress is getting made toward that. Every year, progress is getting
Yeah.
made toward that. So that's always kind of been the goal, is to get these guys compensated the way they should be compensated. We're getting towards that. I know this is like kind of a tangent from your question,
Oh
but
no.
I think that's kind of a key part of this, for the PLL, and making sure that these guys have a chance to play, as they get to home markets, is getting these guys to the point where you're making enough that you could live where your team is.
Yeah, and I think that
Speaking of
also.
no, sorry,
Oh,
go ahead,
I
Aidan.
just agree that also goes a long way towards helping the PLO be seen as like a real professional sports league when guys are making real professional money, at least in the low six figures, where they can, like, this is their full-time job versus, not that these guys don't love coaching high school or college, and having clinics, but to the point where they don't have to do that would do a lot towards keeping the best players in the game longer.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
I know you just said you didn't want to speculate about Lyle, and this is going to be another question that's just asking you to wildly speculate, but I'm curious to get your opinion, just, with how knowledgeable you are. Is the league has grown so much since its inception, and this move starting to go to the home markets is probably the biggest move they've made since launching the league. Do you have any sort of thoughts or feelings as to when you think the league will eventually settle down, and instead of, having these homecoming weekends where the Cannons are in Boston one weekend, half their games are going to be in Boston and half their games are on the road?
When they laid this plan out, I think they made it I think they said, and they tried to make it pretty clear, that it's going to be, a few years from here to, or maybe even a year or two, from here to the point where, all right, these are the markets now. These are the 8 places where teams are going to play their home games. How that's going to work with a schedule where you have more weeks than you do teams, gets to be kind of interesting. Like, what do you do with those weeks where, the weeks that right now are Fairfield and Minneapolis? I hope they, selfishly, as a guy who lives 20 minutes from the
Mm.
Fairfield venue, I hope they keep coming to Fairfield. But I think their plan is, you don't start attaching yourself to the home market thinking you're going to basically keep touring with a city's name on your chest forever. The idea is to get into these markets, and I think the moves are being made and the efforts are being made to kind of make sure that the roots are being planted in a way that makes sense. Um, a while ago, I was at the New England Youth Lacrosse Convention, which they have at Gillette.
Yep.
Um, and the Cannons were there. Coach Holman was there, so I went and saw some talks with some coaches. Coach Holman, I saw him speak at kind of 2 different sessions there. But the first one, the session was about like building culture and that kind of thing. And like, yes, his talk was about that, but his talk was very much about that, and kind of threaded through it was this idea of, this is how the Cannons play, and you as fans, you as people in the Boston area, you're going to be proud of that. This is going to be something where we want you to be able to identify with this. And really, what kind of the purpose of that first talk was, like, look, this is about as good of a captive audience as you can get for Coach Holman, for the Cannons in general. This is a convention with every youth lacrosse coach, club director, girls and boys, all over the Northeast, all in one place. and you can get Coach Holman in front of them talking at a couple of different engagements, shaking as many hands as he can, meeting as many people. That's kind of like the effort that to me makes a ton of sense, because then you're meeting a million different club coaches. You're finding, everybody's getting to know everybody. There's connections being made there. And that's how you kind of get yourself ingrained in the lacrosse community locally, right? So that's the kind of thing that's going to be helpful for them as they continue to kind of make it a permanent, all right, we're here all the time. We have a home game every weekend kind of thing. There's that piece. And then there's the piece that you saw in Carolina. I don't know if it was last week, might've been a couple weeks ago, but yeah, Blaze Reardon out at the
Oh
Hurricanes
yeah.
game, ringing like the siren, and that kind of stuff is super important as well, because at the end of the day, fans buy tickets to see Blaze Reardon. You buy a ticket, if you're a Cannons fan, you go buy a ticket to see Asher Knowlton or Marcus Holman or Ethan Wall or whatever. You buy tickets because of the players that are out there, because those guys, you've seen them do something awesome, or you like them as people, or you have an attachment to them from college, whatever it is, but you're buying a ticket to see those guys. And so the players need to be the stars, right? You can't have, you have, we've kind of, from league launch till now, we've kind of been building, and it's important for the league to be kind of the star for some of that as it gains credibility and able to be, a recognition to it and all that. But the players have to be the stars now as you get into these markets. So when you put Blaze at a Hurricanes game on their social, on the social here, on TV, on everything else, and there he is, you can see his face, you can get to know him. This is the guy you can buy a ticket to come see. Then you're making him the star. And so that kind of stuff, the more you see of that, I think is great too. But those kind of community outreach things that they're doing, that's how you kind of get yourself really rooted down well as you make kind of a transition to a full-time in market.
Yeah. Great. Well, certainly hope we see Holman and Knowlton and Colin Kirst at a Bruins game in the near future.
Yeah, get those guys out there, get them to Celtics games, all that stuff.
Yeah. See if the PLL can expense some courtside tickets.
Get them out, raining the Foghorn or whatever it is that they got at Gillette now for the Pats game.
Yeah, they got that lighthouse there.
Yeah.
Get
them out there.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Obviously, during a lot of the Sox season, they got stuff to do, and also nobody should have to watch the Red Sox this year.
Hey, not too bad so far.
No, not too bad, but it's the A's, my giant asterisk.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But
all right. So I don't think we have too much more. I do just want to quickly ask, if you have, obviously you watch more lacrosse than probably anyone I know. But if you have a favorite PLL team or college team or anything like that, and if so, why is it the Cannons?
I strive for objectivity all the time, so I don't really have favorites or anything. But it's funny. I say it to people a lot about. There's something, I don't know if it's because I'm getting old or what, but my sports fandom in the last 5-10 years or so, for just about every sport I watch, honestly, I tune in for the players to see things that I might have never seen before. You can turn the scoreboard off. You can turn the clock off. I don't care. I haven't cared about the outcome of a sporting event in a really, really long time. Because at the end of the day, in sports, particularly, I watch a lot of basketball and I watch a lot of lacrosse. Lacrosse, obviously, I watch a ton of. It's probably too much. My wife would say way too much. But like, I tune in because, I for guys like Lyle Thompson, or for, if Josh Byrne is on TV, I'm going to watch.
Yeah.
I'm going to see something that I maybe have never seen before. I'm going to see some incredible athleticism that there's maybe a handful of guys walking earth who can do this. And it's on TV like several times a week, and you get to watch it. Like, how cool is that? In football, like if Lamar Jackson's on TV, I'm going to watch. He's going to do something incredible. All that kind of stuff. That's why I watch sports now. So I don't find myself really cheering for teams or even cheering for outcomes. I hope every game is close, and I hope I see something cool that I've never seen before. I find lacrosse gives me the opportunity for that to happen the most often, where I'm going to see something creative, special, and something that's going to change kind of the way I think about the game. Maybe happens a lot now. So that's kind of why I watch. I don't really have a favorite team. I'll watch every game every weekend. I'll watch as much college as I can every weekend. I watch D1, D2, D3, the whole deal. I if I had more time, I'm sorry, varsity club lacrosse guys, I don't have enough time in my life to make sure I get to the MCLA thing. I wish I did because the games are really fun. It's a really cool format. It's a really exciting way to play lacrosse, and those kids care so much. But man, if you can add a few more hours to the day, I'll watch it. I swear. But I turn the scoreboard off, turn the clock off. I don't care. I don't care who wins, loses. I just want to see really cool things happen. So if your team is boring and you don't do fun stuff and you play slow and everything is like the same every week, then I'm probably a little less inclined to watch you as I would be to tune in and watch somebody who's trying to do things differently, or somebody with a more exciting players who are more improvisational, who are more fun and have a little bit more personality to them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we are kind of professional Cannons fans at the moment, but I do strive to have that attitude towards a lot of sports, especially now that the Patriots are not as good.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about just watching lots of fun sports. Last question I want to ask you. You mentioned that this draft it is just so stacked, and I feel like we also say it all the time, just that what a crazy college season. But this season, 2024, I feel like has just been nuts. Who's going to be left standing on Memorial Day? Who's doing it?
So I made a pick in preseason and then I doubled down on it at the championship series to Mitch Pelkey and a bunch of other people. But I picked Duke to do it this year. I was ready for the uh, Brennan O'Neill is hearing the haters saying he can't win big games and he's going to go out and destroy people. And that's still possible to happen. Duke has not looked quite as invincible as I thought they might be this year. They look really good. They're super talented. Um, I think Josh Sawada is giving a dimension to them that people maybe didn't expect to see. I don't think they were expecting Josh Sawada to be outscoring Brennan O'Neill for a significant portion of the season. He might even be outscoring him now. No, I don't think he is. Actually think he's not, but he was for most of the year. But
Yeah.
I think I can't. When you make that pick, you can't change it. Like this is the life we've chosen. When you pick a team in the preseason, it doesn't matter how bad they are, man. You gotta stick with them. But I took Notre Dame in the preseason last year, and I worked out for me. I'm
There you
trying to
go.
stay hot. I got Duke again as the team. I think where again I feel like eventually Brendan O'Neill is going to be like, enough of all you. Watch this and play some serious lacrosse in the big moments. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for him to be there in the tournament, be there in Philadelphia, and make it his own weekend.
Mm. Well,
That would be quite the way for him to cap
yeah.
off. It's been a incredible college career.
It's the only thing he doesn't have. He doesn't have a
Yeah.
college ring. There's nothing else that he could possibly win at this point. First team All American, Tuaran, world champion MVP. Like there is nothing he does not have right now that is available to him except a college ring.
Yeah. For the narrative, I do hope it happens because I guess if he doesn't win, then that will kind of follow him around until he wins one in the PLL, which if he's going to the Outlaws, who knows? Probably not year one. But would be.
Yeah, Ryan Boyle had said he needs one for his legacy at Duke,
Yeah.
and that soundbite kind of made some news and everything. But I don't think Boyle's wrong. Look, if you're at Duke
Yeah.
and you
If you're the
don't win a
best player.
ring, if
Yeah.
you're at Duke and you don't win a ring, people talk about you differently. It's the same thing with the Syracuse or
Yeah.
those kind of programs where if you're a guy who goes there and you don't win a ring, you're not talked about the same way and remembered the same way as the guys that do. Whether that's fair or not isn't up to me, but that's just kind of how it is. And so that'll be something, like you said, that sticks with him if he doesn't win one. Um, and even if he wins a PLL one or an NLL one, it'll be something that sticks with him even after that, as he never had a college ring. Can you believe it? This guy never had a college ring. So yeah.
Well, not that Brennan O'Neill has led a difficult life, but you are kind of inclining me to be rooting for him this spring. So we'll see if your prediction will come true. I mean, they were pretty close last year when they tied it up in the second half of the championship game. I really thought it had like that evil empire feeling, but Notre Dame uh pulled it out in the end. And exciting for them, obviously their first ring, but no one wants a back to back. So yeah, maybe we'll see if Duke can pull it out. Um, all right. So Dan, thank you again for coming on. It was great to talk to you. Let all the people know. I mean, if I assume they already know because you're bigger than we are. Let the people know where they can find you. Do we make sure that the very few who haven't heard?
Sure. Yeah, you can find me. Most of my comment goes out on Twitter or X, where my handle is my name, Dan Arestia, DANARESTIA. I also host the Sticks in Lacrosse podcast, and I run the sticksinlacrosse.com website, where you can find stuff that I've written and PLL big boards and draft content and all that. Um, and then you'll see my work covering high school and at Prep Network and New England Lacrosse Journal, and see my D2 and D3 polling for USA Lacrosse Mag, and my D1 media stuff for IL. So I'm all over the place. I'm pulled in a lot of directions, but yeah, the old social handles are probably still the best way to find me and to tell me I don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't think anyone who follows the game could tell you that, Dan. But then again, I've been on Twitter, so
Oh yeah, you've seen
all
the
right.
comment section. You know what it's like down there.
Yeah. All right. Thank you again, Dan. Jack and I will be wrapping it up in a brief moment, but it was great to talk to you. Hope to get to do it again soon, and we will definitely see you in Fairfield and hopefully in Boston.
All right, guys, thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks.
That was such a great conversation that
Yeah.
I
I
don't
mean,
know, just
Dan,
yeah.
such a knowledgeable,
Dan's so
like,
cool.
yeah, he's, yeah, to be able to talk to someone like that who knows so much about the game, who like not necessarily from an X's and O's point, but just who follows the game so closely at almost every level. Just like giving us tips on players that, maybe it's my fault for not knowing them, but I haven't watched a lot of Delaware lacrosse this year, I confess. Uh,
I, I was gonna say the same thing. The way that he can just name drop guys
yeah,
is truly impressive. I didn't he was on a roll, but there were a couple of draft prospects that I was really hoping he would have said what school he plays for, because
yeah,
I had not heard that dude's
yep,
name before. And if he's a PLL draft prospect, I'm like, I feel like I should probably at least have heard that name before.
yeah. But now we got a couple Fogos to look at. We got a couple attackmen to see, and hopefully, whether he's right or not, it'll be fun to save this clip and look back on at the end of the season, or after the draft, the first part. And
That's right.
yeah, again, just what a gift to exchange some words and gain some knowledge about what to expect come May 7th. So again,
Speaking of
yep,
which,
yes, we should announce that now.
haven't posted it on social yet. That will be going up soon. But so we'll give you, I guess, listeners, you guys get a little sneak preview, little drop in the goods. We have officially locked in a spot for our watch party Tuesday, May 7th, 7 p.m. Aidan, where's the battery going to be watching the PLL draft?
They will be watching it from the Banshee restaurant, bar and pub in South Boston. So it's just a few minutes walk away from the JFK UMass stop on the Red Line. So pretty easy to get to. If you're in the area, we certainly hope to see you there to see who the Cannons do take at 6, because as Dan said, I don't know necessarily it'll be the best player available, and I don't even know who that will be, whether it's probably not taking Liam Entenmann, but is it going to be a Fogo? Probably not. Is it going to be a defender, an attackman? There's a lot up in
Midfielder.
the air, and they
Is
have a first round
Kavanaugh
draft.
going to fall to 6?
He could.
He could.
With Dan seems not to think that the Whips will take Pacino, and far be it for me to question Dan. I kind of hope he's right.
Could the Cannons
Maybe the
take
Cannons.
Pacino?
Yeah, you can with them having really only Raw as the true LSM. Who knows? Uh, so I really cannot wait. Just the fact that the Cannons have a first round draft pick after a couple years of not having one is going to be super exciting, and to see where everyone else falls as well.
I'm sorry, but this just came into my head. Piz Pizzino Champ Series next year.
Oh my God, he's gonna destroy. He better go to one of the top 4 teams,
That'd
unless
be
that's the White
nice.
Dogs.
Anyways,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's going to be so. I mean, he's going to be fun to watch all summer. He's fun to watch now. And to see him compete at the highest level is going to be just unreal. All right, this is a bit longer for an outro than we intended, but we just love talking about lacrosse. We do it every chance we get. So thank you all for listening. Thank you to Dan once again. You can follow him at his handles down below. There, his name if you don't know how to spell it. And we will talk to you guys again soon. All right, go Cannons.
go Cannons.